Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul. He is set to chair the Homeland Security Committee next year, and he sits on the Health Committee. Are you at all concerned that elevating individuals who have been publicly critical of some particular vaccines, RFK Jr. to HHS Secretary, Dave Weldon to CDC Director, that any of that will erode trust in vaccination?
You know, I think all of us can agree that there's an increase of vaccine hesitancy. And I think it comes from people not believing what the government is telling them. The fact that the CDC Committee for Vaccines and the FDA Committee for Vaccines said for COVID boosters that you should take a booster if you're over 65. And yet the Biden administration and Rochelle Walensky actually politicized that, didn't follow the science, and said you should boost your 6-month-old.
What?
And the American public is rejecting this. Only about 20% of the American public of all ages is taking the COVID booster because the government hasn't been honest with us. People are doubting because they're being told that. I'll give you an example. Look, I think vaccines, smallpox, the story of smallpox vaccine, polio vaccine are some of the most miraculous discoveries in all of medicine. And I'm not against vaccines. But like when my kids were little, the hepatitis B vaccine, they still want to give it to them as a newborn. My baby's new and just, come into the world. And you can see how a lot of reasonable people say, why do I have to do it as a newborn? Couldn't I come back in 3 months or 6 months? So really it's about choice. It's about getting rid of mandates. It's about letting people participate, but it's also about the government being honest. What are the risks and what are the benefits? And they haven't been honest on COVID because healthy children do not die from COVID, do not get seriously sick, and there's no proof that the vaccine has any medical benefit for healthy children.
No.
Well, we want to think what you said there is that you're supportive of all those health nominees, from what I heard.
Yes, I am supportive, but I wouldn't describe them as the problem with vaccine hesitancy. I would describe the government misinformation as the problem with vaccine hesitancy.
Okay. Promises Donald Trump made on the campaign trail. His mass deportation vow is very popular. Our CBS polling shows 57% of voters like the idea. The vast majority prefer that federal law enforcement or immigration agencies carry them out.
You know, I'm 100% supportive of going after the 15,000 murderers, the 13,000 sexual assault perpetrators, rapists, all these people. Let's send them on their way to prison or back home to another prison. So I would say all points bulletin, all in, but you don't do it with the Army because it's illegal. And so I'm for removing these people, but I would do it through the normal process of domestic policing. Now, I would say that the mayor of Denver, if he's going to resist federal law, which there's a long-standing history of the supremacy of federal law, if he's going to resist that, it will go all the way to the Supreme Court. And I would suspect that he would be removed from office. I don't know whether or not there'd be a criminal prosecution for someone resisting federal law, but he will lose. And people need to realize that what he is offering is a form of insurrection, where the states resist the federal government. Most people objected to that and rejected that long ago. So I think the mayor of Denver is on the wrong side of history, and really I think will face legal ramifications if he doesn't obey the federal law.
Of rounding up millions of undocumented people potentially. How do you suggest they implement it?
I will not vote to use the military in our cities. I think it's a terrible image. But I will tell you, but just in the last week, with the belief that a new administration will change things, there were 4 or 5 criminals arrested in the last week. And what would happen, and I think what will happen under Donald Trump's administration, is I don't recommend to use the Army, but I would use the FBI, I would use ICE, I would use Border Patrol. These are the kind of people that are dangerous and that everybody needs to be the watch on. And they would go out and seek those people. We have about 30,000 very dangerous people already convicted of crimes. That should be the first priority for all of us. Let's go find those people. But it's not about detaining them. In all likelihood, they should be going to a jail, either a jail here or in the country they came from. So I think if we did that, there'll be a lot of unity. If they send the Army into New York and you have 10,000 troops marching, carrying semi-automatic weapons, I think it's a terrible image and I will oppose that. But it's not that I oppose removing people. I just object to what has been against the law for over 100 years, and that's using the Army. I still don't like a militarization of police, whether it's National Guard or Army. I think there's a lot of FBI. There's a lot of Border Patrol agents. There's a better way to do it, and it needs to be individualized. That doesn't mean I'm any less serious about getting it done. It just needs to be done according to the law and consistent with our traditions. In 2017, I voted for a tax reduction package that they said would add to the debt. but I also forced my colleagues to vote for pay as you go. It's a policy that's in our law, and they have to waive it, which means that if a tax cut causes a reduction and it causes an increase in the debt because of reduced revenue, that you have to have spending cuts. So I've always been in favor of the tax cuts, but I've also been in favor of the spending cuts. The same will occur with this. If we do cut taxes, which I think helps the economy, you leave money in the hands of the productive private sector. I think that's a good idea. But if you do it, I would cut spending, and there will be procedural blockade or procedural votes that I will force that says that we should also cut spending as well.